They came on a Thursday. No warning, no transmission, no prelude of diplomacy. Just sudden, impossible shadows cast across the sky like the hand of a god reaching down to smother the sun. I remember standing in the parking lot of an old gas station. Off I-80, a cigarette between my fingers, the taste of cheap coffee lingering on my tongue. Around me, silence stretched. Not the quiet of peace, no. The kind of silence that comes just before something breaks down above. The sky rippled, turned gray, then darker. People stumbled out of their cars, out of shops, out of their lives, necks, craned toward the impossible shapes blotting out daylight. Ships, dozens of them. Massive, city-sized things made of angles and purpose, floating like they owned the atmosphere. No noise, no heat. Just presence. As if the sky had been stolen and replaced with metal. Some people screamed. Some prayed. Some streamed it live on. Their phones, hashtags, and hearts and disbelief flying faster than comprehension. And me? I just stood there and smoked. Not because I was brave, because I was tired. I'd seen war. Iraq, Syria, South Sudan. Hell, I'd caused wars back when I was still inside the Orion Black Archives, pulling strings no one ever saw. But this wasn't war. War has sides, boundaries, rules people pretend to follow. This was annihilation with a grin. At 1422 EST. They hit Manhattan. No countdown, no demand, no ultimatum. Just a beam of white light so bright it burned through cloud, steel, and bone alike. A second later, there was nothing left. No smoke, no rubble. Just a hole where the city used to be. My little brother lived in Manhattan. Worked as a school teacher. He sent me a dumb meme that morning about pigeons being the real government. I watched his face vanish on a tablet screen, mid-laugh, pixels flaring white, then black. And I felt it. Not panic. Not grief. That came later. What I felt in that moment was cold. Not like winter cold. Something deeper, older, the kind of cold you feel in the marrow when your body forgets how to hope. I thought I was done. I thought I'd buried the last reason. I had to fight. But standing there, ash beginning to fall like snow, I felt something else creep in beneath the fatigue. Revenge. Not loud, not screaming, just quiet and solid. Like a gun being loaded in the dark, I left the station. Took a car. No one needed any more. Drove west with a pack, a sidearm, and a name no longer listed in any official registry. I didn't have a plan, just a direction. I'd heard rumors. Pockets of resistance. Rogue operators. People who didn't run, didn't beg. The kind of people who looked at the sky and said, "Try it." The council thought Earth would fold. That? Our chaos made us easy prey. That's what their archives said after all. Culturally erratic. Emotionally unstable. Divided. Primitive. They thought their math made U.S. manageable. What they didn't account for was something no algorithm could. Quantify. Spite. We don't kneel. Not even to gods. They called themselves the as hers. I found them 3 days after the sky broke, west of Denver, buried in the bones of a town the council had already forgotten existed. It didn't have a name anymore. Just scorched concrete, twisted power lines, and silence punctuated by the distant groan of collapsing structures. I knew they were there before I saw them. You could feel them. The way predators make the forest go still when they move. At first, I thought I was hallucinating. I'd gone 40 hours without sleep, running on adrenaline, caffeine pills, and spite. The nights were cold and loud. Alien patrol drones roamed like vultures, hissing static in the clouds, searching for heat signatures and AM leaks. I had a foil-lined blanket and an old Vietnam-era repeater radio I used as a decoy. Every time it sparked, they'd follow it. Burned 3 of those things before I even crossed into Colorado. But the Ashers didn't hide. They waited. I found them around. Dusk, camped inside the hollowed-out shell of an old feed store, its walls reinforced with scrap metal and rebar. Sandbags, broken drones, rifles of mixed origin council, human, hybrid lined the perimeter. Tripwires strung with crushed cans and glass. They weren't military. They weren't official. They were something worse. They were angry. Don't move, someone growled from behind me. I stopped, hands raised. I didn't even turn. You don't turn on a voice like that. You exhale and stay still. I'm not council, I said. You think that matters? Another voice. Female. Closer. A lot of traitors look human. Check his back, the first said. Cold fingers lifted my jacket, tugged up my shirt. They were looking for the brand. The council tags their collaborators with a subdermal sigil between the shoulders, not ink. Something alive. Glows under UV. He's clean, the woman said after a beat. Still might be stupid. Definitely. Is, I muttered, or I wouldn't be here. They let me enter the camp under watch rifles trained, eyes sharp. Every face was carved from loss. Ex-soldiers, hunters, farmers, a few kids too young to be this hard, too old to be innocent. All of them wrapped in scavenged gear, dirty jackets, black tape, and blood that hadn't dried right. Not a single uniform in sight. Just rage-wearing skin. I found the leader by a half-lit fire built inside a rusted engine block. He didn't introduce himself. Didn't need to. He had the kind of presence that made the temperature drop when he looked at you. Got a name? He asked. Nope. Got intel? I handed him the drive. One of the last copies from the Orion Black archives. It held stolen blueprints, ship schematics, intercepts. Mostly useless without context, but one file mattered. One I shouldn't have had. Dropship class identifiers, I said. Weak points. Fuel intake, troop compartments, pulse relays. He didn't blink. Where'd you get this? I burned a man for it. Was he council? No, worse. He wanted to be. The leader stared at me a long time. Then he handed the drive to someone else, nodded toward the far corner of the camp where weapons were being prepped on a stolen diner table. You want blood? He asked. I want memory. Then suit up. We're hitting one tonight. It didn't feel like destiny. It felt like spite in motion. The target was a Class II Council dropship that had landed in the foothills north of the city, parked on a ridge like a god come to rest. Council craft always looked like monuments instead of machines. Organic geometry. Living steel. You could hear it hum if you stood too close, like a beast sleeping under its own heartbeat. We moved fast and low. 8 of us. Mud-caked boots. Homemade. EMP charges. One drone with a scavenged council lens jury-rigged into a recon feed. Everyone knew the plan. Everyone knew the cost. They didn't care. They'd all lost something too big to bury. We reached the ridge. Just after 2 a.m. fog curled along the valley, thick and sour with the taste of burning aluminum. The ship loomed like a monument to extinction. Lights blinked along its sides, soft green pulses that made your teeth ache. The air shimmered around it. Heat? No. Gravity distortion. The Council liked to warp the field near their vessels so kinetic weapons deflected just enough to miss. But they hadn't calculated for dumb, stubborn, ground-born bastards who knew how to adapt. The Ashers didn't fire missiles. They fired trash. Old school. Rusted bolts packed with acid. Scrap rigs loaded with thermite. Suicide drones flown by. Kids with nothing left to lose. They jammed signals with dirt batteries and tuned radio towers from a decommissioned stadium to throw static across the enemy's comms, and it worked. The ship roared when it fell, not with fire, with rage. Metal shrieked as it cracked open on the rocks. plasma leaking like the blood of something that thought itself divine. I watched it die with my rifle in hand, knuckles white, heart silent. Not joy. Not even relief. Just vindication. Then we dragged one of the survivors out of the wreckage, scales peeling, breathing ragged, tall, reptilian, eyes like polished glass. It looked at me and flinched. Not because I was human, because I was smiling. It said something in that garbled, clicking tongue. One of our tech heads translated later. They warned us about you. And that, more than the victory, more than the fire or the wreckage or the blood, was what stayed with me. The council had known, and they still came, which meant now we had something. Even better than a reason to fight. We had a promise to keep. We didn't have generals. We had grudges. That's how the Colorado Springs op started, over a cup of stale coffee and a file folder with burn marks down the middle. The Ashers had intercepted a council transmission. Routine scan, or so they thought. Turned out to be a rotating signal beacon embedded in a mobile command tower. A spire, as we'd come to call them, set up on the bones of an abandoned Air Force base just outside the city. The signal wasn't just comms. It was control. That tower was directing ground patrols, feeding data to orbital surveillance, coordinating harvest operations. Knock it offline, and half the region would go blind. It wasn't a strike we planned. It was one we had to do. There were 8 of us. No cal signs, no medals, no uniforms. Just names that felt more like rumors than men. Kilo, the sniper. No real name, no history. A stitched patch on his coat said Kilo in black thread, crooked and angry. He didn't talk much. Just lined up shots like he was drawing the last page of a story. Gideon, a former Marine turned ironclad reaper. Burn scars down the left side of his face, one eye gone white, and a .50 cal rig that looked like it belonged on a tank, not a man. He was quiet too, but when he moved, the ground remembered. Then there was me. Still don't know what I was doing there. Half of me wanted to die. The other half wanted to kill something beautiful just to see if it bled. The relic in my chest. Hadn't done anything since the dropship fell. But I could feel it deep under the scar tissue, like a coiled wire humming just below perception. We moved at night. No lights, no signals. Just breath and rain and grit under boots. Colorado Springs was silent when we arrived. The kind of silent that makes your heart beat too loud. The streets were drowned in water and ash. Buildings sagged like corpses. And there, in the middle of it all, the spire stood tall, breathing, alive. Council tech isn't built. It's grown. Pulsing metal, sinew-like conduits, a nervous system made of memory and instruction. You don't walk into a structure like that. You enter its body. And if you're not careful, it eats you. Kilo set up on a ruined water tower. I moved with Gideon through the back alleys, boots sloshing through puddles that smelled like ozone. And blood. The spire pulsed a sickly green. Every 30 seconds, it exhaled a low harmonic tone that made your teeth ache. 2 scouts on the left. Tower drone above. Clean shot, Kilo whispered over comms. Light it, I said. 3 seconds later, the drone burst like a balloon full of light. The scouts dropped in the same heartbeat. No screams. Just wet sounds and collapsing armor. We breached the outer. Shell fast, climbing through a service hatch that looked too organic to be mechanical. Inside was worse. The walls pulsed with heat. The floor vibrated with breath. Every surface looked like it had been skinned, then wired into thought. We made it to the core. The tech heads called it the spine, but it wasn't tech. It was a vein. A 6-foot-thick artery glowing like molten copper, filled with liquid. Memory and pulsing code. We planted the charges around its base, 5 in total, each wired to detonate on a chain. Gideon checked his timer. then tapped his chest twice the sign. And then it went to hell. A side hatch blew open like a wound. 5 of them Council elites, not grunts. These were Black Tier, armored from skin to soul, faster than thought, built to erase history. They moved like algorithms, cold, exact, efficient. The first one got Gideon in the chest. Plasma rounds punched through his vest like it was tissue. He fell hard, but he didn't stop. He fired back, roaring through blood until his arms gave out and the .50 cal dropped to his knees like a dead god. Kilo took out 2 from above. Clean, surgical. The rest went to cover, firing suppression rounds that turned concrete into air. I dove behind a console, head ringing, rifle jammed. My hands were shaking. Not from fear from the relic. It pulsed once hard that I could feel it like something had opened. Like something was watching. I thought of Tam, 19 years old. No family. No medals. She joined 2 weeks earlier and said she wanted to see a world after war. She got 2 plasma bolts through the chest and didn't make a sound. Just fell back. Still smiling. That's when the timer hit 0. The explosion wasn't a boom dot, it was a detonation of memory. The entire spire screamed. Not mechanically, organically. It shrieked like something that realized it was dying and didn't understand why. I ran. Not because I wanted to live. Because I didn't want them to win. Green fire erupted behind me. Walls convulsed. Flesh metal cracked. I fell through a half-melted corridor, rolled through black smoke, and came out covered in ash and pieces of what used to be intelligent machinery. We lost 3 that night. Gideon. Tam. One of the tech kids, whose name I never got. The Ashers cheered when we returned, but I didn't hear it. The relic inside me wasn't quiet anymore. It was whispering. There. Watching now. They know what you've done. Our intel pulled the transmission the next day. Dirty feed. Partial translation. 4 words stood out in a dozen council dialects. Threat level exceeding projection. They didn't say human threat. They said Earth. I realized something that stuck to my bones like old blood. We weren't fighting a war. We were waking up. I didn't sleep after Colorado Springs. Not just because of the blast, or the dead, or the way Gideon's last scream echoed in my skull like a thunderclap that wouldn't fade. It was something else. A heat under my skin. A pulse that didn't match my heartbeat. The relic wasn't dormant anymore. It had gone from whispering to calling. The Ashers didn't notice, too busy rearming, relocating, salvaging what they could from the council wreckage. But Kilo knew. He didn't say it. He just kept staring at me like he was watching a fuse burn and wasn't sure how long was left. 3 days later, a signal came through one of the black archive uplinks buried in our tent. Encrypted, black flagged. Old coding Orion signature, the kind only ghosts and dead men used. It cracked itself open on my terminal like it had been waiting. Recon Unit Foxtrot 2. Asset located. Confirm non-council origin. Request high priority extraction. Coordinates transmitting. Relic status. Active. Repeat. Relic status. No air. Support. Radio silence recommended. Most of the Ashers ignored it, chalked it up to another ghost chase. But I knew better. There was only one word that mattered in that message. Relic.I. Left the next morning. Didn't ask permission. Just handed Kilo a folded piece of paper with fallback plans and the phrase "burn everything" twice written in red ink. He read it, didn't blink, just nodded. Try not to die. No promises. The ride north was hell. Frozen rivers, shattered. Highways, patrol drones sweeping low and slow like they were searching for something beneath the trees. They were jumpy now, edges sharper, patterns broken. They weren't hunting resistance. They were hunting something else. The coordinates led me to the Grand Tetons. Snow fell sideways in the wind, cold enough to make my bones ache beneath the beomthum. Relic's warmth. I buried my bike beneath a collapsed ranger station, hiked 3 miles through the woods with frost crunching under my boots, my rifle slung tight, and my blood humming like an overcharged wire. The entrance wasn't marked, wasn't mapped. It was a gash in the mountain, half covered by moss and thyme. Someone or something had shaped the stone around it, smoothed it like glass. Strange geometric patterns had been carved into the rock so precise they hurt to look at, not writing, not symbols, just math. Sacred, angry math. Inside, the air was wrong. No echo, no chill, no sound. Just silence thick enough to make your ears ring. I walked 50 feet in, rifle tight against my shoulder, breath shallow, pulse steady. And then I saw it. A chamber carved from obsidian. A single pedestal in the center. And atop it, the relic, not like the one I carried, bigger, darker. It looked like a shard of reality itself had been broken off and left to bleed light. Shaped like a cube that had forgotten what symmetry was, twisting in ways that didn't make sense, pulsing with a red glow that throbbed like a heartbeat trying to wake up. I didn't touch it. Not yet. I circled the chamber. Every step felt like it weighed more than the last. The walls were lined with old marks, not alien, not human, something else. Something my blood recognized even if my brain didn't. I turned on my scanner. It screamed. Radiation. M-bursts, seismic distortions impossible. Readings. A buried signal so strong it made the device melt in my hand. The room wasn't abandoned. It was waiting. And then I heard it. Not with my ears, with my skull, with the back of my mind. One word. Released. I didn't move, couldn't breathe. My hands clenched the rifle like it was the only thing tethering me to the real. Release. It wasn't asking, it was commanding. Not like a voice, like a memory trying to break through skin. I stepped forward. Slow, mechanical. The moment I touched the relic, everything died. The light, the sound. Even thought. It felt like falling through myself, like peeling the world back and seeing what lived behind it. The relic collapsed on itself, folding, crumpling, shrinking into a black splinter no larger than a coin, and then it sank into my hand. I screamed. The chamber flared red, then white, then nothing. I woke up in the snow outside. The mine. Rifle still slung, pack untouched. No memory of walking out. Just a burning in my chest where the relic had vanished. My veins glowed faintly, like fire beneath frost, and then the transmission hit me. No static, no distortion, not council, not human. Subject, redacted. Artifact retrieval confirmed. Asset status, active. Initiate phase, wake. I looked up at the sky. The clouds moved wrong. The wind shifted like it was watching me. And I felt it. Something beneath the crust. Something old. Stirring. I didn't go back to the ashers immediately. I needed to think, but there was no time. That night, every screen on earth-shattered TVs, still working HUDs, cracked tablets, anything with signal flared to life. A face didn't appear. A voice didn't speak with lips, but it spoke. And it said, Earth is not what you think it is. You are not what they told you were. The invaders have awakened the old fire. They have trespassed into the vault of the first war. You will suffer. You will burn. But if you endure, the voice paused. Cold wind howled through the broken dark. You will remember who you were. Then silence. That night, 5 council ships exploded in low orbit. No launch trails, no missiles, no warning. Just vanished, like something had blinked. Like something had woken up. You could smell fear in the orbital feed. Not ours, theirs. The council had gone dark. No more atmospheric patrols. No more low-fly surveillance sweeps. The skies above the Rockies, once humming with alien scanners and black-tier sentinels, were now empty, like they were holding their breath, like they'd seen something in the dark and backed away slowly, hoping it wouldn't follow. They left behind their wounded, burned ships, smoking pylons, frozen cities with half-finished terraforming. Scars still clawed into the soil. That's not retreat, that's abandonment. I got back to the Asher's forward camp 5 nights after the relic bound itself to me. The place had changed. Not physically same tents, same rusted gun emplacements, same barrel fires. But the people? Different. They looked at me differently. Some nodded without knowing why. Some avoided me altogether. One man, a former engineer named Pell, made the sign of the old Earth Trinity Mind hand, flame, and walked away without saying a word. I couldn't blame them. The mark had spread. Veins along my left arm now glowed faint gold under moonlight. Not constantly, just when I was angry, or near council metal, or dreaming, especially when I dreamed. The dreams weren't mine anymore. I saw vaults beneath the earth miles deep, older than species, filled with machines that pulsed like lungs, and sang in a language made of numbers and grief. I saw cities carved from obsidian, wrapped around wells of gravity so dense they bent memory. I saw a figure standing inside a storm of falling satellites, cloaked in starlight, whispering to the dead, and always, always. I saw the same words etched into every wall. We buried the first war beneath the second lie. That's when we got the emergency ping from Black Site Theta. No one called it that. It was known as the Maw. Buried under Yellowstone before the park was even a park. Rumors said it was built by Earth's first off-world black program long before the public knew we were scraping the edges of the solar system. The distress call was 7 seconds long. Static screaming and one word: run. We didn't. We mobilized. 6 Ashers Kilo, a scout named Rika, a pair of twins who only spoke to each other, and me carrying a pulse rifle and something inside me that wasn't quiet anymore. We reached the Maw in 2 days. The ground there didn't look wrong, but it felt wrong. The trees leaned away from the center. The wind didn't blow in. Animals avoided it. Gravity pulled sideways. And beneath our boots, the ground sang in a frequency too low to hear but too deep to ignore. The facility had been breached. No sign of a blast. No forced entry. The doors thick enough to stop a nuke had been opened from the inside. The old logos were still etched in the steel. Us SC, Global Gatewatch Initiative. Level Omega Black clearance required. The place reeked of ozone, old blood, and ionized dust. The lights flickered as we moved deeper. Power still ran barely. Consoles sparked. Screens showed looping security feeds that stuttered and snapped like broken film reels. In one frame, we saw it. A figure. Humanoid, but wrong. Tall. Skin like obsidian glass. No mouth. No eyes. Just a face-shaped void staring into the lens like it could see through it. Behind it, the walls moved not from damage, but from recoil. Something had been released. Rika whispered, "That's not council tech." "No," I said. "That's older." We reached the central shaft, an abyss that dropped further than the scan could measure. The lift was offline. The stairwell was melted. But we saw the warning, scorched into the floor by some kind of plasma. Torch. They aren't dead. They're waiting. Then Kilo found the survivor. Tied to a wall. Conscious. Barely. A woman in a torn lab suit. Blood crusted around her nose. One eye burned shut. But her voice, when it came, cut through the dark. Like a scalpel. "You idiots don't know what you've done." "We didn't open it," I said. She laughed. Coughed. "No, but you woke it up. What is it?" She turned her face toward me. "It's not one thing. It's a memory made flesh. A defense system older than human thought. Earth wasn't just a cradle. It was a vault, a prison. The Council didn't come here to conquer. They came to make sure we never found the key. I felt the relic burn in my chest. Pulse. Pulse. What was inside? I asked Dot. She didn't answer, because that's when the lights died. Complete darkness. Then dash motion. Slick, fast, tall. The sound of breathing where no lungs should be. A shape slid through the corridor with impossible grace, limbs bending wrong. Footsteps silent. Rika fired first. The twin brothers screamed. I didn't fire. I saw it. It was wearing a face. Mine. Not perfectly. Like someone had described me to a machine that had never seen a man and told it to sculpt regret. Its mouth opened vertical, wrong, red light pulsing from within, and it spoke. Not allowed. Inside. You opened the seal. Now remember what we buried. Then everything went red. The world folded inward. I collapsed. And when I woke up, everyone else was dead. No wounds. No signs of struggle. Just empty. Eyes open. Mouse frozen mid. Scream. Except Kilo. He was gone. Vanished. And carved into the wall beside me, written in blood, was a phrase that hadn't been spoken on Earth in over 10,000 years. The wardens have begun to move. I stumbled out of the maw with frost on my fingers and fire in my blood. The Council had come to stop us from remembering, but it was too late. The Earth was waking up, and it was remembering everything. It's strange, the moment when your fear dies, not because you're brave, but because the shape of the world has changed so completely that the old terror no longer fits. I walked back from the maw alone, boots soaked in snowmelt and someone else's blood. The relic inside my chest pulsed like it was trying to crawl out. Every few miles, the trees would shiver, not from wind, but as if they recognized me. I didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't need to. I was changing. It wasn't dramatic. No wings. No claws, no glowing eyes, just awareness. The taste of metals in the air. The hum of tectonic plates grinding in the crust beneath my feet. The dreams, God. The dreams. Each night I saw more of them. The wardens. Not gods. Not aliens. Not even sentient in the way we understand. They were fragments of a defense protocol forged when Earth was seeded by the primordial accord in ancient. Compact forged long before the Council ever learned to speak. They didn't live. They waited, buried inside quantum vaults. Wrapped in myth. Etched into mountains and memories as demons, angels, ghosts, echoes. They were truth wearing the skin of superstition. And now they were waking, because I had unlocked one. And somewhere, they were voting. Voting on what to do with us. The Council didn't know. They guessed, at best. But something had rattled them. By the time I reached what was left of the Asher's base, it was empty. Not destroyed, not evacuated. Just gone. Weapons untouched. Tents still zipped. Fire pits half lit. As if everyone had walked into the trees and vanished. Only one thing remained. A crude symbol carved into the command table. Not a language. A warning. The same shape I'd seen in my dreams. 3 concentric circles pierced by a single vertical line. Didn't know what it meant. Not yet. I headed west. The relic had begun pulling at me again. Not physically, not in steps, but in knowing. I knew where to go. I didn't question it. I followed. Somewhere near what had once been Boise, I saw it. Not a warden. Something else. It stood in the middle of the road like it had been waiting hours. Maybe days, just to meet me. 9 feet tall. Cloaked in something that wasn't fabric. Face hidden behind a mirrored plate. It carried a staff made of bones, human bones, but its posture wasn't hostile. Raised my rifle. It didn't move. Then it spoke. Not with sound, with memory. My brother's voice. Tyler. Dead in Manhattan. I hadn't heard him speak since the sky came down. Wraith. You have walked past the brink. There is no returning now. The thing stepped forward. The air bent around it like heat off asphalt. I kept my rifle steady. You are the first candidate in 3 cycles to survive a Keyband event. You hold Echo Sequence Delta 5. That makes you eligible. Eligible for what? I said aloud, my voice rasped and dry. It tilted its head. Trial. And then it raised its staff and slammed it into the earth. The world buckled. Not metaphor. Not hallucination. Reality cracked. I was falling. Through ground. Through memories. Through the crust of Earth and into something older than the planet itself. A space with no stars. A void made of thought. And within it, a voice like thunder caught in amber. The species has breached containment. A second voice. Cold, feminine. Infinite. The council intervention has failed. A third, alien, insectal, almost amused. Shall we erase or elevate? That's when I realized these weren't beings. They were votes. I was standing inside the original failsafe mechanism to determine whether a seeded world would be purged or ascended. Earth was up for judgment, and I was the tiebreaker. Trial began not with questions with visions. I was pulled through Earth's history in seconds. Watch the old wars, the ones before humans, the wars of fire, the Shatterfall, the sealing of the first vault beneath the Pacific Trench, the betrayal of Mars, the long sleep, and the Council. They had been warned never to touch Earth, not because it was weak, but because it was quarantined. We weren't an accident. We were a test. When I came back to myself, I was lying in a crater. The creature with the mirrored face was gone. The staff, broken in half beside me. A symbol scorched into the ground. A new one. One I somehow knew chosen that night. The wardens moved. 3 council cities burned. No trace of weapons. No trace of attackers. Just light and the echo of something older than logic. I climbed to a hilltop and looked west. Fires burned across the horizon like veins across the skin of a waking god, and I felt it deep in the core of the world. We weren't fighting. Earth was fighting for itself, and it had finally chosen a voice. Mine. They came back to kill me at dawn. Not the wardens, the council. 4 Vicari strike cruisers broke through the ion-choked sky like surgical knives, their hulls glowing with atmosphere friction, shedding drones like spores from a dying god. Precision. Fire. No warning. No diplomacy. Just one objective. Eliminate the anomaly. That's me. By the way, I didn't run. The relic had fused deeper into my chest. By then pulsing with a rhythmic pattern I now understood wasn't a heartbeat but a clock. Something was counting down, and I knew. They weren't here to win. They were here to erase. There was a word the council never used publicly. Whispers mostly, buried in intercepted data, decrypted reports, forbidden lexicons. I'd seen it once. Before, deep in the black site archives, and hadn't understood its context. Oblivion Protocol. It meant planetary sterilization, not with bombs. With silence. They didn't destroy the target. They unmade it, erased its memory from reality, past, present, all quantum echoes, like it had never existed. It wasn't warfare. It was deletion, and they were going to do it to Earth, because I remembered. Because I woke it up. I stood, alone on the ridge where the Asher's camp once burned. Kilo was still missing. The others were dead. The staff left by the mirrored entity was now embedded into the soil, humming low, drawing strange spirals into the ash around it. I could feel the strike drones lock onto me, 73, all clustered. In layered formation, the first wave descended. I didn't blink. The relic pulsed once. Boom, and the air shimmered like it had been set on fire. Not heat, just raw displacement. Every drone in a 100-meter radius collapsed in midair like marionettes with their strings cut. And then I heard it. A voice I hadn't heard since childhood. Not in dreams. Not in hallucination. My mother. Wraith. Baby. Don't forget who you are. I collapsed. The world split open. Suddenly I wasn't on Earth anymore. I was in orbit. Above Earth. No ship. No suit. Just perspective. The kind of perspective that breaks minds. That bends identity. That slices you into a billion thoughts and stitches you back wrong. I saw the planet, not as it is, but as it was, covered in vast structures made of living crystal. Titans of thought pacing beneath its skies. Minds so large they were measured in miles and memories. Humanity was there, too. Not weak, not lost, but reborn. Bred as the next link in the accord of species forged in violence, tempered by emotion. Given a single buried purpose, to remember what the galaxy chose to forget. We were the failsafe. The accord fell, the council rose, and in the vacuum of that transition, they lied. They erased the old war, painted Earth as a primitive backwater. A mistake. But they didn't bury the past, they walled it up inside us. That's what they team. Relic unlocked. Not technology. Memory. Humanity isn't a mistake. We're the record. And I'm the first playback. When I came back to myself, blood was leaking from my eyes. The ships above me had stopped moving. Their fire had ceased. They were hovering now, uncertain, like predators who just saw their prey stand up with a halo of fire. That's when the sky cracked open. Literally. A rift, not alien, not warden, not council. Earthborn. A black slit peeled itself into the clouds, and from it poured something impossible. Not ships, not machines, ideas given form. Creatures wrapped in iron geometry. Men and women made of fractal light. Echoes of extinct warriors. Thought forms encoded into DNA, ancient human prototypes. They didn't land. They simply replaced the space the council occupied. Instantly. No light. No sound. The cruisers above me turned into silhouettes, hollowed husks. Not wreckage. Just empty. I didn't cheer, didn't smile, because in that moment I understood what came next. Earth wasn't fighting back. Earth was rebooting. The relic pulsed again, this time in a voice. Candidate Wraith. Custodial access confirmed. Phase 2 initiated. I tried to speak, tried to ask what Phase 2 meant, but I already knew. The countdown was never to an attack. It was to an awakening. And whatever was buried in the deep, layers of Earth's mantle, beneath the crust, beneath the vaults, beneath even memory, it was rising now. I looked down at my arms. They weren't glowing. They were changing, bone reorganizing, skin refracting light, neural lattice forming beneath the surface like golden webbing. Every cell aligning. Not becoming alien, becoming original. The form we were meant to take before the council locked us in genetic limbo. I wasn't becoming more. I was becoming true. That night, every satellite still operational broadcast the same message on all channels, all frequencies, in all languages. It wasn't from Earth. It wasn't from the council. It was from us. From the humans who came before humans. You thought we were extinct. You thought you could silence us. You thought this world was yours. We are not primitive. We are not prey. We are the echo of the first flame, and we have returned. The wardens bowed. The council fled. And Earth opened its eyes. It didn't start with Earth. That's the first lie to fall. The second? That the council ruled anything at all. By the time the fourth sun rose after the rift, 17 member worlds of the Galactic Council had already broadcast emergency declarations. Not war, not collapse. Fear. Their fleets were frozen. Their command hierarchies fractured. Entire archives self-erased. Why? Because the echo signal that burst from Earth transmitted in every known form of data contained more than a warning. It contained proof of the Accord, of the suppression protocols, of the quarantines wrapped around seed worlds like myths and manacles. And worst of all, of what they did to us. The truth spread like fire in a drought. Some planets fell silent. Some begged for our forgiveness. A few tried to rally and vanished within hours. Not bombed. Not erased. UNREMEMBERED. The wardens were moving faster now. Not everywhere, just precisely. They struck command relays, memory vaults, and what we once thought were natural dead stars. Turns out a lot of the Council's black holes weren't black holes at all. They were locks the Accord left behind, and Earth had the key. I sat beneath the old bones of an orbital tether, its ruined coils twisted like the ribs of a dead god, watching the sky boil violet over the Rockies. My body was no longer entirely mine. I was taller, stronger. My blood ran cold unless I focused on keeping it warm, and my thoughts were not alone. There were memories, millions of them, pressing at the edges of my skull, like a sea held back by glass, but I hadn't broken. Not yet. That's when Kilo returned. He didn't knock. He simply appeared, stepping through a ripple in the air like the laws of space had decided to make room. His armor was gone. His skin was etched with glyphs that pulsed as he breathed. His eyes, still human, were full of something I hadn't seen in weeks. Terror. Kilo? I asked. He nodded once, then dropped to one knee. You can't stop it, Wraith. Stop what? He looked up. The return. The Accord? He shook his head. No, worse. He pointed at the sky. Not at the stars, but at the dark between them. They're waking up because of you, he said. But not just the wardens. Not just Earth's memory. You activated a signal that stretches beyond our galaxy. You echoed too loud. And that's when I felt it. Something had hurt us. Something older. Not bound to Earth. Not part of the Accord. Not part of any cycle or seed or council lie. Something that feeds on resurrection. They were waiting, Kilo whispered. Not just for Earth to awaken, but for us to reach back into the dark, to remember ourselves. That's the signal. That's the bait. I felt the relic pulse once, then stop. Not die. Just go quiet. The last time that happened was when it bonded. To me, this was different. This was submission. Kilo, what is it? He closed his eyes. The reason they sealed Earth. The reason the Accord fell. It wasn't the Council. It wasn't war. It was them. The ones who came before even memory. The ones the stars tried to forget. I turned to the west, where the mountains once stood. Now they burned. Not with fire, but absence. A shape was forming in the void. Not a ship. Not a creature. Something like a thought made physical, stretching across miles, covered in runes that bled gravity. They're not invaders, I said aloud. No, Kilo answered. They're returning home. We stood in silence as the world shivered. A message bloomed across every sky, in every tongue, in every mind. Not from Earth, not from us, not even from the Council. It was a single phrase, no sound. Just understanding. We are the forgotten author. And in its wake, systems shut down. Stars flickered. Languages collapsed mid-sentence. People dropped to their knees not because they were afraid, but because something inside them remembered. The relic in my chest ignited again, but this time it didn't pulse. It spoke. Wraith, you are no longer the key. You are now the door. That's when I understood the final horror. I hadn't just awakened Earth's past. I had become the bridge between the story we forgot and the one still waiting to be told. The stars bled wrong, not in color or brightness, but in pattern. Whole constellations bent in ways that violated every physical law we understood. As if the universe had remembered it was a draft, not a final copy. Edits scrawled themselves across the sky, constellations reshuffling like forgotten. Letters trying to spell a name no tongue had spoken in a billion years. The forgotten author was writing again, and I was the ink dot it started with the ground humming. Beneath my feet, deep and bone-low, like something under the planet was stretching after a long sleep, I stood alone now. Kilo had vanished, whether by choice or force, I couldn't tell. The Warden fragments had stopped appearing. Their role was complete. Their purpose served. Now came something else. Something worse. I didn't breathe so much as remember breathing. My body no longer responded to time as it should. One step might take a second. The next took a memory. I walked across what was left. Of Utah, though the name meant little now, and watched as the last council satellite collapsed like a spider crushed under invisible fingers. No war. No declaration. Just void. But there were still voices. Thousands of them. Inside me. Somewhere. Human fragments of the Accord's final council, sealed into the relic at Earth's core. Some were older, in languages I didn't know, yet still understood. Others weren't voices at all. They were feelings, pure and sharp rage without form, longing without memory, grief as large as oceans. And they were waiting for my command. Not because I was powerful, but because I was now the only thread still woven into every part of the story. Earth, the Accord, the Council, the forgotten author. I was the constant that made me dangerous, that made me divine. I reached the ruin of an old military black site somewhere near Groom Lake. It had no name on any map, just an echo. Something that remembered being secret long after its creators were dust. I passed through automated defenses that still blinked red even though their minds were long dead. Inside was a chamber, circular, polished metal, untouched by time. At its center a chair, not for comfort, for reception. It greeted me. Not in voice. In truth. Welcome, final witness. This is Memory Node Theta 1. You are cleared for the Ascension Directive. The lights pulsed. One by one, ghost figures formed in a circle around me, tall, luminous, genderless. Their skin flickered with code. They weren't people. They were the editors. The ones who helped the forgotten author keep balance. Until the story ran too long. Until the council replaced nuance with structure. Until Earth was sealed. One of them spoke. You broke the lock. You triggered the recall. You have done what no species has ever risked. You opened the unwritten chapters. Another joined in. The council feared entropy, but the author requires it. You are the axis now, Wraith. What you choose next will be written across all of time. I wanted to speak, to ask what they meant. What choice? Then the chair activated and the veil dropped, and I saw Earth, not a planet. A pen, humanity, not a mistake. A margin note scrawled in desperate hope before deletion. The council? A pause. The author? Not a being. Not a god. A force. The drive behind creation itself. Something that needs stories to survive. Something that feeds on narrative. On belief. On change. We weren't its children. We were its editors. And the war was never about conquest. It was about direction. I stood in the center of the circle. The voices rose into chorus. They showed me two paths. 1. Accept the Ascension Directive. Let Earth rise. Let the memory of the Accord reshape the galaxy. Let humanity guide the next era. 2. Reject the directive. Collapse the recall. Let the forgotten author erase it all. Council, Accord, Earth, me. Start over. Blank page. I stood there as time bent around me. Entire galaxies lived and died in the seconds I wrestled with it. Could I trust humanity with this power? Could I trust myself? Then I heard her voice, not from the system, not from memory. My mother, baby, you always did love rewriting your endings. I smiled, not because I understood everything, but because finally I understood enough. The chair pulsed once more. I made my choice. And somewhere beyond the edge of stars, the author began to write again, but this time we held the pen. The stars didn't scream, they sang, a low, haunting melody echoing across the void, through dead satellites, shattered hulls, fractured moons. Not music of joy, not of mourning. It was a song of acknowledgement. The council was gone, not defeated. Unwritten. Their archives had always been fragile things, built on algorithms, data loops, quantum projections. But the truth had never belonged to them. It had always waited beneath Earth's crust, inside the bones of those who refused to kneel, behind the memories sealed away in mothers and sons and broken soldiers. And now that truth had a voice. Mine. Wrath. They used to call me a ghost, a myth, a mistake. Now, I was the narrator, and the galaxy could feel it. Ships drifted out of formation, no longer following protocols but listening. Planets turned their eyes inward, finding in their dreams strange stories they'd never been told but somehow remembered. And in the rift still open, still glowing, a figure watched. Not the forgotten author. Not anymore. That role had passed. The figure took my form, but it wasn't me. It was possibility. The echo of who I could have been, had Earth never been. Chained, had we been allowed to grow as intended. That version of me smiled, then vanished. I stood alone at the edge of what was once the solar archive nexus, now reduced to obsidian ash and gravity shards. The relic in my chest was gone, not removed, not destroyed, transferred into the very fabric of the new narrative. It pulsed now in the structure of reality itself. The author had left the pen in my hand, but I wasn't alone. Behind me, thousands stood, kilo, returned and scarred but alive. Rogue wardens with free will now awakening. Even council species liberated from programming, blinking like newborns. And humans, survivors, fighters, dreamers. I raised my voice, not loud, just clear. The story is broken, I said. Not just ours, all of it. The council thought order was safety. The Accord thought memory was salvation. The author thought we were editors. I looked up at the rift. They were all wrong. I paused. Then I spoke. The true title of our kind. We are not scribes. We are not echoes. We are not the forgotten. We are the storytellers. Around me, light changed. It didn't shine. It revealed. Worlds hidden in the folds of gravity. Beings long sealed behind entropy. Languages not spoken since the first atoms sang. The galaxy bloomed like ink and water. But it waited. For me, I turned to the crowd. There's no going back. This isn't a rebellion. It's not a war. This is the blank page. Silence. Then a voice, kilo. What do we write first? I looked back at Earth, still scorched, still cracked, but alive. Something true. And I began. In the beginning, there was a lie. They called us primitive. But the truth was simpler. We were just the last species brave enough to remember. Across the stars, the new record formed, etched in stardust and choice. No more overseers. No more locked memories. No more gates between what was and what could be. Humanity didn't win by force. We won by story. And now? Now the galaxy listens, not to gods, not to rulers, but to the ones who never stopped dreaming. To us.